Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose. All right, everybody, welcome to Built with Purpose. Today is another episode of Between the Builds. Great opportunity for us to reflect back on last week's guest and just kind of talk about a couple leadership lessons that popped out. Last week was a fun one for me and a couple reasons. Number one, it was a buddy of mine, Raj Alva joined us, an amazing career. Raj has done tremendous amount in the private equity space and investing and in business. And most recently, he's working on an AI project, but is also one of the founding investors of Grayson Clothing, as well as the co-founder of Whiskey Gypsy. And it's funny, when I called Raj and talked to him about this, I was talking about, this whiskey brand that he started and founded with Eric Church, the country music star, which is I'm a huge fan of Eric. And so, I kept saying Gypsy Whiskey. And he's like, hey dude, it's Whiskey Gypsy. Again, it's just that opportunity to be a little bit different. And so anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about kind of this differentiated path and where you're going and why, but really, really cool story. And, it was funny for me, especially being somebody that listens to country music, thinking about, I was picturing this opportunity where Raj goes up to the golf course. He's sitting there and he realizes he's being paired with Eric Church and has no clue who Eric is. No clue. And so Eric comes up, he's running late, brings 2 Coronas, and then they're fast friends. And then here, Eric called him one day and was like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this bourbon thing, this whiskey thing, you in? And Raj was like, hey man, I don't know anything about it. Give me a little bit of time and we'll figure this thing out. And now they're 50-50 partners on this really, really awesome brand. But anyway, I thought the conversation was great. I love talking to Raj, and a couple of things really stood out for me that I think each of us can take home, as we think about our lives and leadership. One of the things I think that, and we've talked about this in past episodes, is that, your experiences, the things that you've gone through in the past, you have your wiring, right? You're wired a particular way. Like we're all wired differently. And if you have children, that wiring is real. Like my 2 sons are wired completely differently. So you have wiring, and then you have your environment, right? You have the experiences in the environment that you get a chance to participate all through your life. And typically the wiring with a combination of those experiences in your environment ultimately dictate who you are and where you focus and where you spend your time. So it was cool about Raj's story, born in India, moved over here, was given an opportunity to go to school and learn, was always different, was always an outcast, had a bit of a chip on his shoulder as he continues to grow. And people said he couldn't make it and wouldn't make it. And so, he had this drive to be like, hey, screw you guys and girls, I've got this and I'm going to show you what I'm capable of doing. And so one is he has that chip that keeps him motivated. And I think if you look at, really successful entrepreneurs, really successful leaders, really successful, athletes, oftentimes they have a bit of a chip. They have something to prove. They have something that's going to just push them a little bit farther above where kind of a normal thought process would go. And so it's cool to kind of see that chip from Raj's origination and how it's kind of translated in today. But then he also talked about actually going back to India and seeing where he was from and seeing a lot of the poverty and seeing that a lot of kids didn't have the opportunity that he had, right? And so he's like, you know what? I've been given an opportunity. I've been given an opportunity to get an education and to do something with this. And I owe it to the rest of these kids that don't have the same opportunity to take action, right? And so there's a purpose in there that says, I've been given gifts in my life that I'm going to grow and leverage to do something great. And then you combine that with a chip on your shoulder as far as like, I'm going to make this thing happen. And you have the recipe for something truly amazing. And so I reflected back on that in my life. I don't necessarily have a full chip on my shoulder, but I certainly identified with the conversation of feeling somewhat responsible for doing good with the gifts that God has given us. And the reality is, look, all of us have been given gifts by God. Everybody, no matter your circumstance, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through today, God has blessed you with some level of gifts that you can do good in this world. And the best thing that you can do is identify what are those gifts and how do I leverage those gifts to really take action in this world. And so I feel like I've been given gifts in a number of different areas of communication and the way that I see things. And so I don't want to waste those gifts while I'm here on earth. I have no clue how long I'm going to be here. I hope it's for a whole lot longer. I'm only 45 and I feel like I've got a good runway, but I could do something, something bad could happen tomorrow and God forbid. And so I want to make sure that I'm not wasting those gifts that we have. So that was kind of the first reflection I had with Raj, is just, really understanding where you came from, how you're wired, and how these experiences and this environment has shaped you over time. And the better that you understand that now, the better you can harness those skills and those experiences and that environment and that wiring to go do good in this world. So that was a really cool conversation for him. We then kind of pivoted into business and really, really great conversations. And at the end of the dialogue, I was like, this is why I had Raj on the show. We talk about built with purpose, building companies and teams and individuals and people with purpose. It's exactly what he's doing. And so we kind of bantered around this, what's going on in the private equity space today and what companies are going through and how companies continue to grow. And one of the things that stood out to me as we talked about this conversation about how do you build a company, and if you build a company with the sole purpose of selling it, chances are you're probably not going to build a very good, lasting company, right? Because all you're looking at is the dollars, right? You're looking at that exit valuation. But if you build a great company that people want to be a part of, that your friends want to come work with, that you would be proud to bring one of your friends' children into the business, if you build a great company that is set to last for many, many years ahead, there's always an opportunity to sell. And the reality is there's plenty of businesses out there that are just being purpose-built for sale. But the ones that truly stand out, the ones that create a culture and an environment that is great for employees and ultimately great for customers. And I would say that's one thing that we probably fall short on from time to time if we're serious about, is if you don't build a great company, the people that suffer, it's your customers. Customers can always tell if you don't have a great company. They can always tell if your people aren't happy. They can always tell if you don't have your shit together. So one of the best things and best outcomes of building a great company is not only to have a great culture and to do great things and to change and to continue to innovate in the world, but it's also to make sure that you have happy customers. Without customers, you don't have any money. And without money, you don't have a business. So putting the customer first and making sure that we've got a great business that's delivering value to that customer base is ultimately what's going to fuel your growth. And customers know if you're building a company for sale, if you're just trying to operationalize and maximize margin, but if they know that you have their best interest at heart for you, the customer, you're going to be a customer for life. And that's how you build a great business. And then over time, if there's a liquidity event or a potential sale, that's great. Some people want to sell their business. That's a major milestone in their company. Others want to transition it and pass it along to other generations. It's all great, but it all starts with building a great company. So that was a really cool conversation, that we had. And then, finally, the other thing, and we talk a lot about change on this show and, our mission statement and changing, on a daily and weekly basis, the world, our market, everything is changing faster than we can even understand, especially with the advent of AI and the acceleration that's happening in our industry. Change is happening, right? And honestly, it's happening whether we want it to or not. And so when we talk about in our organization is embracing that change and never stop learning, right? And one of the things that Raj kind of talked about, and gosh, I remember back to like my first couple weeks on the job here and in the company, and this statement, one of the most expensive and dangerous statements that any business or any leader can hear is, that's the way we've always done it, right? That's the way we've always done it is an excuse that we hear from our teams to basically say, we haven't been willing to change, we're not willing to change, and we're doing it this way because that's the way we've always done things. And if you continue to do the same things over and over and expect different results, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. So it has to be in our nature as leaders to shake things up, to drive change, to put people outside of their comfort zone, to drive change in your organization or your team or your church or whatever it is that you're leading. And so I used to, I would say love. I love. It's probably the wrong word, but people got to know me that when I would kind of poke around and stuff. Okay, what's this really cool? Like, why are we doing it? What's going on here? Yeah, I see. It looks like there's a little bit of friction. That might not be okay. Got it. Well, so why are we doing that? Well, it's just the way we've always done it. Bam. Like I would change it. I would change whatever's going on just to drive a point home that we cannot rest on our laurels inside of our business. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about kind of what we've been going through in our organization. And I lead a family business that was founded in 1973. That is my father-in-law's, my wife's, and my mother-in-law's. And then we also have a SaaS organization that I've started, and a couple other businesses that are out there. And this balance of innovation and legacy, right? Or call it the past and the future, is something that I feel like is the right balance for an organization. That's the way we've always done it. Well, there's probably a good reason that you did it that way. And I want to understand why you did it that way. And I want to understand the context, but we also have to understand that the market, our company, is shifting and changing. And so the way that we do things has to continue to shift and change, right? So it's important to understand the legacy, where we've come from, our history, our foundation, like our culture, our people, like the values inside of our business. That's all the legacy. That's all the past that we need to hang on to and understand in context where it came from and how it applies today. But we have to drive innovation. We have to drive change inside of our organizations, or we will fail. We're going through a situation right now. We're actually divesting one of our business units. And so we're in the process of communicating that out to our team, and ultimately we'll be communicating out to our customer base. It's a smaller business unit, but a relatively innovative part of our company. And the main reason that we were talking about, and ultimately I made the decision to divest in this business unit, is any business that's not growing is shrinking. It just is. Businesses are either growing or shrinking. They are never staying the same. They're never the status quo. And if you think about us as individuals, we're never just the same. Our teams are never the same. Our teams are either progressing and getting better, or if they're not getting better, they're typically retracting and getting worse. And so we had a situation in this business that we were kind of maintaining the status quo over the past year or two for very strategic reasons. There's a lot of things going on that we're kind of shuffling. I'd call it a big game of chess. We got this big game of chess that we've got going on. But the business, we were intentionally kind of just having it just kind of maintain steady state till we got to this year. And then the decision point, Ken said, all right, we can no longer maintain steady state. We have to drive change. And the change is we either need to invest and we need to grow it, or we need to understand that if we don't invest, the business is going to shrink, the team is going to shrink, and we're going to be at risk. And we looked and we said, we have a lot of investments that we can be focusing on, a lot of areas that we can be focused on. We have to continue to narrow our focus and get really, really good in some key areas of the business. And this is one area that we felt like we probably would not maximize our investment in right now to grow. And so, you know what? Let's sell it and let's put it in the hands of another organization that can shepherd that growth. It's the best decision for our customers. It's the best decision for our team. It's the best decision for our vendor that we service and support. So we start thinking about these changes, right? It's the way we've always done it. Are we growing? Are we changing? Are we honoring the legacy of where we came from, but also innovating on the future? And so in your teams, in your business, when you go through, and you got to understand, we as humans, most of us as humans are wired to resist change. We just are. Now, there's some people like me and Raj and others that just like run to it, like just kind of run to change, because that's just what drives us. It's what drives me. I love growth and change. It's kind of my underlying driver is I just love seeing things grow and change. But as humans, we're traditionally wired not to embrace the change. So it's your job. It's my job as leaders of teams, as leaders of businesses, as leaders of your church, or leaders of yourself. It's incumbent upon us to push ourselves to continue to embrace change and to never stop learning. And if we find ourselves doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, we are setting ourselves up for failure. If you go into your organization and you see people that are just continuing to do the same thing over and over, they are resisting change, and it's your job as the leader to get in there and disrupt, to make sure they understand why we need to change and where we need to change. And they might need a little push. They might need a little help in understanding what needs to happen inside of that business. But that's our job as leaders. So my challenge for you this week, we start thinking about, reflecting back on a great conversation. A couple takeaways I would just challenge you with. What is it that really drives you? What experiences and environment have you been around that has made you the person you are today? Do you understand your wiring? Do you understand the way that you're wired as an individual? And if you had to list out one or two things that really motivate you to grow, what is it? For Raj, it was very clear. He had a chip on his shoulder trying to prove all the naysayers wrong, and he felt an individual accountability and responsibility to use God's gifts for good. Can you answer that question? And then the second thing I would challenge you to be thinking about is, where are the areas that require disruption in your life? Whether it's your family, your personal life, your health, your business, your team, your sports group, whatever it is, your church, where do you see status quo? Where do you see people doing the same thing that they've always done time and time again and expecting a different result? And what is the one thing that you can do to take action? How can you disrupt that change and shepherd folks forward to understand why they need to change and potentially what needs to happen to continue to embrace that innovation? Because, man, buckle up right now. AI, tech, everything that's going on in our society right now, the pace of change is increasing at a rapid rate, and we have got to get on board. So with that, it's another great episode of Between the Builds. I thank you all for listening. If you have any comments, questions, you want to hear any type of ideas or thoughts or recommendations of guests, please contact us on social media, reach out to us on our website, and we've got some awesome guests coming around the corner. And with that, y'all have a great day. Keep building with purpose. See ya. Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.